Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 11, Episode 26. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Glad you guys are back with us, Steelers Nation, for this Monday. And Dave, we should be talking about a 4-0 Steelers team, but of course we are not. We're talking about a 3-0 Steelers team coming off their sudden Week 4 bye. How you doing?
You sound like you got a case of the Mondays or something.
Do I? I don't know. It was a weird weekend.
What's that? Who's that character in the SpongeBob and round pants that looks down through the grate and
I'm Squidward right now.
Yeah.
That hurts.
After watching the rest of the NFL play, I'll give you this. You know, it obviously sucked that the Steelers kind of a forced upon them bye in Week 4, but there were a lot of entertaining games yesterday. Yesterday meaning Sunday, in case people are listening to this from behind, a couple of days from behind. And you know what? There was a lot of what I thought was good. Now, there was some bad quarterback play, don't get me wrong, but there was a lot of good quarterback play, I thought, overall around the league. A lot of throws that I said, wow. And I don't remember the last time that I sat back and thought to myself, man, look at all the good young quarterbacks right now in the league. So I think that was one of the biggest takeaways. So, yeah, once again, it stunk that the Steelers, you had to sit back and watch the rest of the league play. But, hey, I was entertained.
Yeah, there are a ton of good quarterbacks in the NFL. I think I don't know if I'd call it a golden age, but certainly a really exciting time. And so just something to keep in mind the next time the Steelers allow more than like 14 points in a game, that there are some really good quarterbacks out there. Poor Dak Prescott. I mean, that dude is doing everything he can to rally the Cowboys, and that is maybe the worst defense in football. Yeah, he did his part, throwing for 500 and something yards, and not a game I kind of was I wasn't paying close attention to it, but that Deshaun Watson, that's another kid that you just wonder. If you had a little bit better, if they didn't rip away DeAndre Hopkins from him, and if you had a little bit better offensive line and all, what could that dude do? Obviously the Steelers just got done playing the Texans, and close game, obviously, and Watson is one of those quarterbacks that regardless of the Texans' record, you have to worry about him when you face him. So he's another one that made a couple of good throws, and then boy, that Josh Allen can wing it too in Buffalo. Another good young quarterback in the league right now as well too. So I think that was kind of my biggest takeaway. And yeah, you go back to I'll wrap you back around to the Dallas game. That was a heck of a game to watch there. The Browns ran away with it for a little while there, and then their defense isn't all that at all, and allowed the Cowboys to come back in that. And for a while there, you almost wondered if the Browns was going to give that one back away to the Cowboys there. Yeah, and then they have the block extra point, 2-point conversion for Cleveland. Odell Beckham Jr. has that 50-yard end around that should have been a 20-yard loss, a wild play, and Cleveland holds on and wins 49-37, I think was the final there. And yeah, Josh Allen is the closest thing to a young Big Ben as I think the NFL has to offer. Did you see that one play that Allen had? And now we're getting off topic already, but there's really no topic to talk about this week. So why not? Yeah, that one where he got hurt and he wrestled the ball away from somebody and flips it underhand. It was an 8-yard completion, and he gets that is such a Big Ben play of all the Big Ben plays. Yeah, and then gets dinged up, leaves the game, and comes back. That's quintessential. Man, can he throw that ball down the field or what? In today's NFL, And this isn't new, obviously, going back to Roethlisberger. This is obviously what has made Roethlisberger such a good quarterback throughout his career. The ability, and this should be the mainstay when you're looking at young quarterbacks coming out now. Can they extend the play? Do they have the arm strength to get the football down the field and on target? At least give their guys the ability to make plays and without turning the football over. Right. It doesn't sound like all that big of a deal, but those three things alone, man, that's the difference, and that's what has the Buffalo Bills right in this thing, and probably will be in it for a while there, because Josh Allen can extend the play. That arm of his, man, is strong, and obviously, we talk about guys like Patrick Mahomes, obviously in that same category there, but Josh Allen's obviously a little bit bigger, thicker kind of guy on top of it. But I was just impressed with his arm strength and his ability to get the football down the field yesterday more than anything else. He put some. What about that one to Smokey?
John Brown.
Yeah, John Brown. That was a crazy throw, and I'm surprised that one wasn't ruled a touchdown there. But enough about Bills Depot here.
Well, I was just going to say the final point on quarterback play, just in general. I think what we're seeing a golden age of is the number of just cross-body throwers, guys that can roll right, throw left, or roll left and throw right. And the old adage was make a quarterback roll out, you take away half the field. That doesn't really seem to apply anymore when you have Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Aaron Rodgers, still the old guard guys that could make a throw from any platform. Deshaun Watson, to me, maybe the second best off-platform thrower in the NFL. So it just makes those guys so much tougher to defend, because even if you have them feel like they're cornered to a sideline, they can still go across the field and still hit a big play.
Mechanics will always be something that's talked about with quarterbacks, but I mean, there's some times where mechanics just have to go out the window, right?
Right.
And especially when these quarterbacks extend plays. I mean, in today's NFL, with the speed of the game and with the pass rush, ferocity of the pass rush, and all that goes along with that, mechanics goes out the window on a lot of these big plays that you see around the NFL. Now, on top of it having the wherewithal to step up into the pocket still means a lot too. And I think you got to see that out of Deshaun Watson on one of those throws, touchdown throws down the right hand side of the field yesterday. So I don't want to say the quarterback position has evolved, because I mean, once again, going back to Ben Roethlisberger, and obviously he wasn't the first to do it, but now it seems like, I mean, your quarterback better be able to do those kind of things, and when you look at a guy circling back around to the Steelers and all, and what we've yet to see out of a young quarterback like Mason Rudolph in his time last season, I think Mason's got the arm strength to get the ball down the field and make those throws. But what we've yet to see out of him, at least last season, and we saw a little bit of it in college at Oklahoma State, but not a lot, is we have not seen that off-platform extend plays ability out of him.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're looking ahead at these quarterbacks coming out, I think that's what it used to be. Is he a pocket passer? Remember that?
Right.
That used to be the buzzword. Is this a pocket passer? I don't think it's that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
When you're evaluating these quarterbacks coming out now, you've got to really, really look at arm strength. And I'm not just talking about throwing the ball down the field 48 yards. That's not arm strength. I'm talking about throwing it 50, 55 and beyond with some mustard on it, and then also the ability to extend plays.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great point, and I think we're seeing more and more of those quarterbacks. And if you find one like that, you better grab them, because that is incredibly valuable in today's NFL. All right, let's pivot back to the Steelers. We'll kind of circle around the NFL throughout this show, because, again, I don't have a whole lot of Steelers stuff to talk about coming off the sudden bye week, but we did have some news come across the wire this weekend, and it was not good news for one offensive tackle, Jeron Jones. Jones is on the Steelers practice squad, and he was arrested and charged on multiple counts Saturday morning around 2 a.m. This is according to the Post-Gazette through the criminal complaint. He's been charged with aggravated assault, simple assault, and strangulation in a domestic dispute, again, with his girlfriend. According to the criminal complaint, this is all allegedly, but I'm going to read verbatim the complaint here. Quote, "The woman told police Mr. Jones had strangled her, hit her in the face, smashed his Xbox console over her face, picked her up, and threw her outside." According to the complaint, she then told police she blacked out and lost consciousness during the altercation. According to the complaint, Kevin Colbert released a statement saying they were aware of the situation but will not comment any further at this time. So obviously some incredibly serious allegations against Jeron Jones.
Yeah, and you obviously, I mean, you hope they're not true, but that kind of statement and all like that. I mean, obviously we'll let it play out the way the investigation plays out. Neither one of us were there and all, but if indeed all this stuff is true, even if half of it is true, you'd have to think that that's going to be it for Jeron Jones, and probably that's it for his NFL career. Period. Obviously a practice squad player, still trying to catch on, and it's unfortunate we didn't get to see, didn't have the preseason or anything like that or training camp for you to get eyes on him. You look at these kind of the kind of the body types and the history of the Steelers trying to take these big kids and whether or not to be defensive linemen or what, and try to Alejandro Villanueva them, if you will. I guess that's a new term now for us to use. I don't think we're going to be able to see it with him. I wouldn't be surprised by the time, obviously the week is still going on here. They don't have to make a move today, even though I think the team's going to have a bonus day today they're gonna take advantage of here. Jeron Jones probably is taking part in his last Steelers practice.
Yeah, I would imagine so, given the seriousness of the allegations. We don't know for sure what the team is going to do. Obviously, the league could step in at some point in the process down the road, too, depending on what happens from these charges. But, never a good sign to be in the news at 2 a.m. on Saturday morning. I'll tell you that much.
My old man used to tell me, he said, Dave, nothing good ever happens after midnight.
Is your dad Herm Edwards?
I proved him wrong quite a few times, but more times than not. Even
that was less of a challenge, more of a word of wisdom. I think he was imparting.
Oh, okay. He was right more times than not. Overall, but it's just unfortunate. Not just from the football and the Steelers aspect, but just from a human being aspect of it as well too. So, hope the young lady's doing okay, and we'll see how this plays out.
Yeah, we'll keep you posted if the team makes any decision on Jones's future with the team. I imagine they will act fairly swiftly. Jeremy Fowler from ESPN has a report that says the Steelers obviously disappointed with having the sudden week 4 bye week with that postponement, against the Tennessee Titans, but they prefer to have the schedule set up the way it is, with them now playing Tennessee week 7, the Baltimore game pushed back to week 8, and essentially taking the early bye. They would have rather had that scenario as opposed to the week 18 extra week idea that some fans have kind of wanted and gone to bat for. So the Steelers seem to prefer what the NFL has decided on.
Yeah, so they say. I mean, it's unfortunate. It's bad luck all the way around. That's still my stance on this. And since we had the podcast the other day on Friday, the league has come out, and not surprisingly, the NFL and the NFLPA joint investigations into the Titans, and to see, what kind of protocols they were adhering to, and if they broke any, and essentially what led to this. I mean, lack of a better word, an outbreak. I mean, that's what it was with this thing here. Now, I think the latest, as of us recording this on Monday morning, is that the positive tests have stopped for now, which is obviously good news for them, because if not, they're getting into jeopardy of missing even more practice time, and obviously having their game against the Bills in Week 5 get called into the question as well too. Even so, and we'll see what the investigation finds. If people weren't properly wearing a mask, if people weren't properly identifying that maybe they had been around somebody who had tested, whatever the reason is, obviously if this is, what's the word I'm looking for here? Not malicious, but just,
negligence,
extreme negligence on the part of the Titans here. I still think it's too much to go in the avenue of, they should have had to forfeit that thing. Hey, you can't make a decision to forfeit a game before this weekend anyway, because you just did not know enough on the matter. And even if there was negligence there, hell, are you going look at what John Gruden's doing right now. You want to talk about blatant disrespect and negligence there. I mean, merely wearing a mask around your neck, for the entire game is not wearing a mask. Okay.
Mm-hmm. He's going to get fined again. I don't know why he's doing that. He already got fined $100K for that.
Right. At what point do they start taking more, and I guess, according to something by Pro Football Talk this morning, there's going to be a pretty strong talking to, if you will, sit down league wide, I think conference call, GMs, blah, blah, blah. And we'll see what that does. But just circling back, I mean, negligence, whatever degree that you find here, it's still probably not enough to warrant any kind of forfeiture. Now, if you want to use that as an example and say, look, if we find, these are the new ifs and thens, okay? If we find this, then that, then that's a different story there. But will they find negligence? Will they find that maybe, what happened if you walk in, if you did the same investigation on all 32 teams right now? What degree of 100, how many teams would be 100% within the guideline protocols?
Yeah, I'm guessing you would not see 100% perfection across the league.
All right, and that's not an excuse. I mean, it's human nature, Mm-hmm. And was there some level of complacency here 3 weeks into the season where everything just seemed? I got to admit, I was pretty impressed with
Me too.
with what was going on with the reported testing and all like that. Is it easy to get complacent like this? Yeah, absolutely. Just go out to the Walmart, leave your house and go to Walmart. I'm sure people walking in and walking out, obviously supposed to wear a mask inside. You just take a look around and see how people are kind of complacent at this point. I know me and my wife probably don't use this hand sanitizer, even in our own house, as much as we did 3-4 weeks ago,
Mm-hmm.
So once again, that's not an excuse, but what's going on, there needs to be some sort of, will the Titans get fined if they find something? Sure, and they probably should be. Should there be a new set of if-then rules or whatnot? This is what you face if we find this sort of outbreak and these kind of protocols broken again. Absolutely. Is this a timely, maybe early season wake up call for the NFL? Perhaps.
Definitely on that. Yeah, short of any malicious flouting of the rules and protocol, you can't have a team forfeit unless there was either just a total, as you said, negligence, but really malicious intent to ignore the rules or covering up a positive test or something like that. That would be the only time I think you could argue it, and I would maybe agree with the idea of a forfeit. Moving the game to week 7 always made more sense than a week 18. That won't happen until there maybe are multiple games being moved where you can't reshuffle the schedule. And because the NFL is not in a bubble, and I understand why they are not in a bubble, because the logistics of trying to play in a bubble is much different than the NHL or NBA. It would have been almost impossible to do. But the fact that you are not in an actual literal bubble always is going to present risk. And we saw that this weekend with Tennessee. Cam Newton, of course, is now out for the Patriots. That game pushed back to tonight, Monday night, so a doubleheader, which is kind of crazy. We saw that scare with the Saints and the Lions game. I mean, it felt really dicey with how this week was going to go, not only for the Titans, but just the NFL in general and the future of the league. And that's not gone away just because you're getting through this week barely. And so that risk is going to continue and honestly probably heightens as we get into the cold winter months.
You had the Patriots and all, and obviously if they would have had a couple more positive tests there, and look, it's going to make even bigger news because in light of what happened with the Titans, and because you're dealing with a star quarterback in Cam Newton, obviously a big name, being the center of that with the Patriots and all. Look, people are probably tired of us talking about this by now, and especially because I know probably over half of them don't agree with my stand. At what point are we supposed to draw the line between fanboy and being objective here? I always have, when I started this thing years ago, I was obviously more fanboy than I was objective analyst. But over the years, you become kind of desensitized. It's just part of what this business is and what I do and what Alex does. Heck, Alex, as long as he's been with, he was a lot more fanboy when he first came on with Steelers Depot, and now he's a lot more objective now, like I am. It's just part of this. And if I thought for half a moment that the Steelers were getting, quote unquote, the NFL after the Steelers, is trying to screw the Steelers again, I wouldn't have a problem speaking up with it about that. But it's just, as circling back to what I said, it sucks most definitely for the Steelers. It's unfortunate. It's bad luck. You can say, why does it always seem to happen to the Steelers? That's acceptable answer, I think. But it is what it is. And at no point should whatever happens from here on out the rest of the season be pointed to and say, well, that's what happened to the Steelers.
Right, and you're right. You said it on, I think, Friday's show. No use crying over spilled milk. So just overall, knowing everything that's happened in Week 4 with Tennessee and the rest of the league, I mean, do you think the NFL is going to get through the season? I mean, baseball did, although barely, and they, of course, had the ability to play a million doubleheaders, something the NFL does not have that option to do, obviously. So do you think the NFL gets through this, or do we see a lot more Week 4s the rest of the way?
I think they're going to get through it, and I'm just going to play the odds there because I think the NFL will force their way through it, if you will. I think what happened this past week, as unfortunate as it was, and especially for the Steelers, I think it's a good learning, it's a good wake-up call, if you will, and for whatever teams out there might have let down their guard and all. Hopefully that. Do I think we'll potentially see another situation here? What happened with the Titans? Yeah, I think it's possible. Do I think it'll have the same outcome? Yeah, I think it's possible. But in my heart of hearts, I still think the league has a quote unquote plan, and I'm willing to bet if you put Mike Tomlin on the lie detector test and truth serum and the Wonder Woman golden lasso to tell the truth, he'd leak a little bit more about what that plan is. I just don't think the league wants all the details of that out there,
Sure.
I've heard rumors that they have the whole month of February for the Super Bowl if they need it. Blah, blah, blah. Take away media week is one of them. That there's ways around this. I just don't think they want to willy-nilly start handing out Week 18 games if they have the situation which they had, which was an obvious one. Although unfortunate, if you want to look at it from a bye week standard and consecutive road games and who the Steelers have to play, of the whole switching the 8 and the 7 and the Ravens and Titans and stuff like that. Does that make sense?
It does, and I agree with you. The NFL, certainly their whole mission this time has just to been push as full speed ahead as possible to try to keep things as normal as possible. But let's also admit the NFL got incredibly lucky with how easy of a schedule fix that was. That could have been much more of a headache. And if this happens to another team later in the season, post teams bye weeks, whatever the case is, you won't have such an easy fix to the situation. And I'm worried that we're going to continue to see this stuff, especially now knowing that Tennessee is a great example of that, just this slow trickle of positive tests, this incubation period where one day you're negative, the next day you're negative, then the third day you're positive all of a sudden, and you're confirmed positive too. That's going to give a lot more pause to just the one-off. Because, if a player tests positive on a Saturday, just one guy, I mean, you don't know if the whole team is still negative or if there are some lingering positives there. And how do you play a game in that situation? That's what's happening with Cam Newton and the Patriots right now. So that's my biggest fear going forward. It's not necessarily more outbreaks where it's 20 players like the Titans have with players and personnel, but the one positive test right before a game where you sit there and say, okay, can we actually play this game? Because we just don't know if everyone else is negative or who's negative and who's positive.
And look, once again, will they find something that the Titans did wrong against protocol and dropped it? Probably, yeah. And depending on the degree of that, they should be fined and fined heavily and all. And also, if they can't get these coaches like Gruden, I don't care what anybody thinks about whether they think the mask help or not. That's not my call. The rule is that you have to wear the mask, okay? So if that's the rule, right? And if you continually break that rule, you need to have fines and game suspension for the coach or whatever. Team fines to prevent that kind of stuff from happening there. End of story. And I think, once again, the Titans should, whatever they find, whatever the outcome of this is, it should be a heavy fine if it's whatever the degree of negligence is here, and you move on. But look, the last thing the NFL wants to get into is an outbreak causing forfeitures.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's just a wild situation. So we'll see what happens going forward. Hopefully, this is the worst of it, but we just don't know.
And on the flip side, the whole competitive balance thing that we talked to, when we talked and we played if anybody missed it, we went ahead and published went ahead and posted the podcast interview with David Beauclair, and we certainly appreciate his time. Had a couple people say, well, can you go ahead and play it for us? So I set that up and I ran that on Saturday, making sure ahead of time everybody knew when it was recorded, the timeline, yada yada here. But the whole competitive balance thing too. I understand practice squads expanded and all, but I felt from a competitive balance standpoint that it just wasn't fair for Titans to go in and have to play that game maybe with a shortened roster and not getting any practice in. And people say, well, that's their fault, Dave. That's not the Steelers' fault. Okay, I get that side of it, but I just didn't like that from a competitive balance standpoint. I want to beat a team. I want to beat a team. I want to beat a 3-0 team that I think went into that game with a fair fight.
Mm-hmm. And again, that was part of the issue, and then part of the issue was just they still had positive tests up until yesterday, right? So you just didn't know how much longer these positive tests were going to continue, and you couldn't play a game if you didn't have a good feel of who was positive and who was negative. So I think that was as much, if anything, the reason why this game ultimately got postponed to Week 7.
All right, I apologize for spending 20 minutes on that, but
no, again, we don't have any other big topic to talk about, and obviously this is still the central story from a Steelers fan perspective. But let's talk about an article you wrote this morning, Dave. The Steelers, we talk about droughts. They finally ended their turnover streak, so turnoverless drought, I guess that's how you could frame it, against the Texans, and now they're looking to try to end their 30-point drought. Have not scored 30 points in a game since 2018 against the Panthers. A lot of stats come back to that Panthers game, it feels like, and hopefully that drought ends against the Eagles.
And I think a lot of this maybe stems from what Stephon Tuitt put on the Instagram machine. His observation yesterday afternoon about all the teams that scored 30 or more points in the games yesterday. And then Jerry Dulac from the Post-Gazette tweeted about it bright and early Monday morning. It caused me to dive back into by the way, man, people out there listening to this, I think Pro Football or Pro Sport or Pro Football Reference is a fantastic site. Always have used it. It's absolutely fantastic. I understand that they're going to subscription. Kudos to them. They should do that as well too. People listening to this, start emailing them right now and tell them we don't mind paying subscription fees. Just bring back the old format of searching these stats out. Holy moly. I'm not the brightest candle in the cake by far, but I feel like I need some sort of a degree to figure out this search criteria for them here. So if you get a chance, people, and you're listening to this, go to stathead.com and start emailing them and say, look, we love what you're doing. Just go back to the old search format, and I bet if they get enough of those, they'll change back there. All right, off my soapbox. No,
you're right. It's awful. I hate it.
I mean,
it's just missing features. I've had to email them. They're just missing some features.
I mean, it's crazy. It's so hard to find the simplest thing, and it's a very valuable website. I have to imagine that people are just dropping off right and left with them. Being able to use that. I mean, it's not worth the price of subscription right now because you can't even use the properly. It takes me 20 minutes to find something on there, and that's like I said, I'm not the smartest candle on the or brightest candle on the cake or the brightest bulb in the room, if you will. But Lord have mercy. Anyway, it caused me to kind of look up some of these things here, and the outcome of that is, and I just lost my spot here. They obviously, as you mentioned, they snapped a 25 consecutive game streak in which they had turned the football over at least once. Hooray, hooray. With that streak now out of the way, the team set to play the Philadelphia Eagles at home in Week 5. Be a great time to snap another streak. And talking about the 30 points or more scored in the game, they have now gone 23 consecutive games without scoring 30 or more points. And that's obviously according to Dulac, that's currently the longest drought in the NFL. Now, it wasn't the Panthers game, wasn't the last time that they scored 30 points or more, but it was the last time that they scored 30 or more and won a game. The last time that they actually hit the 30-point mark was in their Week 13 2018 game, that Sunday night tilt against Los Angeles Chargers. Remember that one with the missed false start, long touchdown in that game, blah, 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 at Heinz Field. That was the last time that they scored 30 points in a game. They lost that game 33-30. The last time that you pointed out that they scored 30 points in a game and won was against the Panthers, back in week 10 of the 2018 season. They scored 52 points in that game. Obviously, I think there was some defensive scoring. There was the Vince Williams pick 6 in that game, correct?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Believe it or not, I'm not sure I knew this or not. The last time they scored 52 points in that game, which was the most scored by the team since 1966.
That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, hopefully, we get this offense back to it. And obviously, they've been, this year they've been at 26, 27. I mean, they've been around the 30-point mark, and hopefully they get over that barrier because, yeah, I mean, it is a scoring-heavy start to the year. I don't know if that's because defenses are playing catch-up without the preseason and tired legs and all that, or if it's just the infusion of great quarterback play that we're seeing. We referenced earlier, but the Steelers want to get over that 30-point hump for sure.
Here's something else for you. 52 times since Mike Tomlin became the Steelers head coach in 2007 has the team scored 30 or more points in a game, and they won 45 of those 52 contests. Entering Monday night's game, another thing that Dulac dug up, entering the Monday night games to close out week 4 of the 2020 NFL season, 51 NFL teams have scored 30 or more points in a game this season. All right, so 51 different times has a how many games? How many teams have played? Boy, you want to talk about math here? Let's see. You had 3 times 16. That's 48 times 2, right? At the end of what I'm trying to figure out is how many opportunities have there been to score 30 or more points in the game at this point right now?
This season?
Yeah. You've had 16 you have 16 games a week through the first 3 weeks, right? And then obviously 2 teams that'd be 48, and then 2 teams, that's 96, right? Heading in, is that 96 different opportunities heading into week 4?
Right. I mean, obviously we haven't had the Monday night games and the Steelers games of 94 because the Steelers Titans didn't play, but yeah.
No, but that was heading into week 4. That does not count. How many games in week 4 have we had already?
Oh, yeah, good point. I've had most of them week 4. So yeah. I
well over 100.
Yeah.
So you've had, as I said, I just lost my spot. How many teams? We've had 51 times that teams have scored more than 30 points. So you're probably around 45 or so percent times, and the Steelers have yet to do that so far this season. So is it imperative that you score 30 points a game to win a game? No, but look, one of these things that'll make this Steelers defense even better than it already is, which it's hard to imagine, is jumping out on teams right out of the chute, which is just something we don't see as Steeler fans, right? But I guess going back to the Carolina game, and even that one, they fell behind in that game. Start outscoring your opponent a little bit more, and you'll have a few more of these landslides, I'm pretty sure, because the defense can just sit back and get these opposing offenses in these predictable positions and crush them even more that way.
Yeah, I mean, the good thing is that they're not in these crazy shootouts like we saw in Dallas and Cleveland. So, I mean, part of it's because the defense plays so well. The Steelers are ball controlled to end games. They've had very heavy 4-minute offenses the first 3 weeks of the season, and so they haven't had to put up 30 points because they're just trying to kill clock, and they could have put up 30 if they needed to in I think a couple of these games. But yeah, point taken overall, this offense is clearly potent enough to hit that mark. It kind of feels like the standard a lot of offenses are hitting today, and eventually when you play the big boys like the Chiefs and the Ravens and teams like that, you better be able to put up 30 plus minimum, and so that'll be the goal for Pittsburgh.
And in defense of this team in this streak, I mean, you had all but 6 quarters without Roethlisberger last year. So even so, there was probably a game or two where you probably should have had 30 or more points, right?
Sure.
So at least one opportunity you would have thought would happen there. So once again, it's not imperative that you hit this streak, but the offense. What's the best way to describe the Steelers' offense through the first 3 games? Clunky.
Yeah, I would say meat left on the bone is how I would describe this offense.
Fair enough.
So we'll see. They'll get there for sure. And the Eagles is not exactly the most potent defense, although they get some good pressure. But I think the Steelers certainly can break that streak versus the Eagles. Juju Smith-Schuster spoke to
real quick. What's the biggest thing that stuck out to you about the Eagles game against the 49ers Sunday night, and about the Eagles specifically?
Mm-hmm. Well, it was always just tough to evaluate because the 49ers are just such a mash unit right now, and they benched Mullins late in that game. I mean, they get good pressure. They are now the NFL leaders in sacks. They have 17 through the first 4 weeks. The Steelers are still second in sacks, even though they haven't played. We played one fewer game than almost every other team in the league right now. So I think the ability to get pressure, that defensive line is still so good with Fletcher Cox, Javon Hargrave's back. Brandon Graham's a super underrated pass rusher. So just the potency of the defensive line for the Eagles, and then attack their linebackers because Nate Gary, number 47, looks completely lost out there.
Well, he was the one that got the gift too, wasn't he?
No, I think that was someone else. I think.
Okay, I'm trying to remember, but
the pick six you're referring to?
Right.
I think that was someone else.
Okay, they didn't tackle all that well either in the secondary from what I saw.
Yeah, from linebackers back, they're a much worse unit than they are. They thrive off the front 4 guys.
And I think offensively, they like to use Wentz and use that read option, right? I think that's one thing that stuck out to me. Their offensive line is going to be interesting. They lost Lane Johnson to an ankle injury. He came back into the game and then left again. You'd have to think that thing probably blew up pretty nice by this morning here. So you would think at best he would probably be questionable at the end of the week there. So and they had to put Peters on IR ahead of the weekend as well too. So this is an offensive line of theirs that's probably ripe for the picking. On top of it, they were severely banged up at the wide receiver position going into this game. And I think really the one other real big takeaway that I come out of that game is they only turned the football over once, while the 49ers turned the football over 3 times. So you hate to boil it back down to a game like that, but if you only turn if you're able to get your opponent to turn the football over 3 times and you're only turning it over 1 or 0 times, you got a pretty damn good chance of winning the game, no matter what you look like on both sides of the football.
Absolutely, especially when one of those turnovers turned into a pick six and automatic points, the way it did for Philadelphia. I think Jordan Mailata is going to be starting at left tackle for the Eagles on Sunday, isn't he? I mean, I actually think his first career NFL game came against Pittsburgh in the preseason a couple years back.
Who played left tackle last night?
Wasn't it Mailata?
Did
he shift to the right side?
No. Hold on. I'll find it for you here.
Because, they've had so many guys coming in and out of the lineup. Mailata was playing somewhere on the left or the right side. I don't quite remember.
Let's look at their starting lineup. Yeah, you're right. He started at left tackle, number 68.
Okay. Right, and then Johnson was on the right side. I don't even remember who came in to replace Johnson whenever he went down.
It was Driscoll.
Oh, right, the rookie from Auburn. Yeah, so Bud Dupree, T.J. Watt, they're licking the chops.
TJ's got quite the hat collection, doesn't he, so far this season? And Driscoll at times did not look good in that game. Really, Lane Johnson didn't look great. I don't think he wasn't around long, and when he came back in, obviously on a bad will there. But TJ Watt, if Driscoll has to start, TJ Watt might end up wearing him as a hat by Sunday night.
Let's hope so. Let's hope the Steelers can reclaim their sack lead in the NFL. All right, Juju Smith-Schuster, I think he had made these comments a couple weeks ago, but also just reiterating he's very happy to be in Pittsburgh. Really, he was talking with CBS Sports HQ and saying, quote, "We're 3-0. I'm very happy with where we're at. We're standing good. The Steelers are part of this AFC run. We're definitely making some noise for ourselves, and I'm happy." And I think he speaks for the rest of Steelers Nation with those comments.
Yeah, he's been consistent with those comments, and why wouldn't he be to start with, right? I mean, I'm sure he likes it. I'm sure he likes it in Pittsburgh. I'm sure the Steelers like him, and would like nothing more than to maybe have him back, if at all possible. Now, I've written this up kind of 2 different times talking about him. The grass is greener on the other side, blah, blah, blah. I know it sounds like Juju's willing to take a discount of some sort here, but really, I mean, you got to get what you can,
Yeah,
right?
I don't interpret that as saying I will take a hometown discount. He's happy to be a Steeler. The team's playing well. He's healthy. Life is good. I mean, it'd be weird if he wasn't happy right now.
Right, and he is happy. And look, the biggest comparative that I think you can find out there is what just happened with Cooper Kupp with the Rams. All right, I think that's where you start when it comes to the Steelers and possible negotiations with Juju. I think it starts at around the $16 million per year. Would you or would you not agree with base market value with Juju being at that?
I mean, I haven't studied it too closely. I haven't really looked at some of the other receivers, but yeah, I think the comparison to Kupp is apt given the position they play, their production, age, etc. So I think that's pretty fair.
And as things sit with the way, let's assume, which is dangerous to do, that the salary cap comes in 2021 at the agreed to lowest possible floor of $175 million. Okay, the associated franchise tag for a wide receiver on that somewhere close to $16 million, according to Joel Corey. All right, we both know that it's going to be damn near impossible to get, not impossible, but damn near impossible to get to a situation where they can afford the franchise tag on Juju. Agreed? By the time that they have to use it.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. I mean, as you said, there's a way to get there. When there's a will, there's a way. And I know we're working under that, worst case scenario, the floor assumption. But sure, it's not going to be easy.
All right. The only other way you prevent from having to use the tag on him and him walking around for several months with that tag, with that tag number being his cap number, is to get him signed to a long-term deal, right? And doing so would have to be done with within the time the season ends until the time the start, by the time the franchise tag deadline is, okay? So you would have to, and you have all this other stuff going on at the same time trying to get cap compliant, right? You're talking about restructures, you're talking maybe about a bin extension, maybe they're going to have to totally change business models this year and really get into the extensions earlier. Obviously you had the situation with Pouncey and Ben doing it at the same time a couple of years ago. That was kind of rare. Ben getting extended that time of spring is not uncommon. All right. But to have someone like Pouncey doing it is. All right. Will they have to do that with a few other guys, maybe DeCastro and some of these other guys to start trimming? Obviously with Ben, we've already talked a lot about possibility of Ben getting extended there. What do you do with a guy like Juju? So I kind of mapped out a, loosely spitball contract idea for Juju Smith-Schuster, and such a deal would end up being a 5-year deal, $87.5 million with an average yearly value. I think that works out to like 17.5, 17.25, somewhere around in there, which would be fair for both sides. The cash flow on that I mapped out it goes along with what the Steelers do as well too, and you could get out of it with a cap hit of around $6.4 million. All right, now $6.4 million is a lot less than $16 million. Am I correct?
I'm sorry, what was that?
I said $16.4 million last time I looked is a lot lower than $16 million, right?
16.4 is a lot lower.
6.4 million.
Oh, 6.4.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is a lot lower. Yes.
All right. So, I mean, that would obviously, that's a $10 million difference there in trying to accommodate a cap hit and get Juju done. Even so, once again, even trying to get in a situation where you can afford Juju and let's say $6.4 million cap hit, it's just strenuous, So is it him? I know a lot of people say, man, we don't want Juju to leave. I get it. And Juju's saying all the right things here, and Juju doesn't want to leave. But there is a line somewhere between wanting to be fair to the Steelers on Juju's side and not getting taken advantage of either. And I think that line's right around 16 to 17 million per season, which obviously he's off to a nice start. That the meter's running, as I like to say here. So I think circling back, I think you had listed Juju as maybe one of the most plausible guys that you think of all the guys of potential unrestricted free agents that might re-sign on the list that I said probably not going to happen.
I wouldn't say plausible. It was in my ideal scenario. My whole idea, and what I said was that it's going to be a much tougher conversation to have about losing Juju after the season than it was this past summer when he was coming off the worst season of his career. Because I think he's going to have that bounce back year. He's going to show his value, and it's going to hurt a lot more. And Steelers fans are going to wish and want a lot more for Juju to return. Now, you're right. I mean, wanting it and wishing it does not change the math. The math is the math, and it's going to be very difficult to do. But I would really hate to see this guy walk. It may happen ultimately. I hope when there's a will, there's a way. They can try to figure something out. It is going to be difficult, but, I mean, the Steelers know that coming into this year it's going to be difficult. They're going to be very busy this offseason trying to make it all work. So, I mean, that's just kind of baked into the cake of the pandemic we're in right now. But ideally, Juju comes back, and again, it's going to be – you're going to hear a lot more fans, and you already are, calling for Juju to return than you were a couple months ago.
The only other way to do this would be non-traditional wise with the Steelers as far as getting a contract done with him. Look, if you can't afford a $6.4 million cap charge, I mean, do you really want to change your business model where it's maybe $3 million less than that? For future. In other words, I can't see the Steelers bucking tradition here as far, and where I'm going with this is let's say they fully guaranteed like the first 3 years of the deal in an effort to keep his cash flow where it needs to be, yet make his first year cap hit lower than 6.4. You see where I'm coming?
Right, and I find that unlikely. I don't think they're going to, change everything just to get Juju done. I mean, I'm with you there.
All right, so I think, and I guess you've been along with me on with my thinking on this. I think the most plausible route to keeping Juju in the fold past this season would be some sort of an signing of an extension that happens before having to use the franchise tag on him.
Right, and that's going to be hard to do because, as you always say, the player's right there close to seeing the market, and the market's going to help drive up his price or at least see exactly what he can get. But I don't want to sit here and say that they can't get an extension done just because he's so close to testing free agency. Players do get signed. They do sign extensions. They do avoid free agency around the league. And if you give him a fair, competitive price that reflects his market value and something close to the Cooper Kupp deal, I think you can strike a deal before having to put the franchise tag on him and avoiding the franchise tag altogether. So I don't want to sit there and say that it can't be done, although, it usually doesn't seem to happen in Pittsburgh.
And as I always like to say, it's always in the player's best interest to force the tag if they can,
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, to me, that he would have, him agreeing to anything less than $16 million based on how he's played up until this point right now would be him just his agent should be fired. End of story.
Mm-hmm. Do we know who his agent is? I'm just curious. Do we know who represents him?
I knew that at one time. I don't know if I know that now.
Yeah, not that it matters a whole lot, but always just curious. It's not Rosenhaus, I don't think.
I would have
Kim Mael?
I don't remember.
Rock Nation Sports is the agency.
Okay, there you go. That's it.
Yeah.
That's how I know it by.
All right. Not that it means a whole lot, but just wanted to throw that out there. So we'll see. I mean, right now the focus is just on Juju playing well, rebuilding, and right now maintaining his market value and making it even more difficult for the Steelers to try to part ways with him after the season.
Right.
By the way, the Steelers are at practice today. Brooke Pryor tweeted this about a half hour ago. After 3 days off, the Steelers are back on the practice field this morning on a day that Mike Tomlin called a scheduled bonus day the last time we talked to him. To officially be a bye week, the Steelers players had to have 4 consecutive days off, so they only had 3, ultimately Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So I think your interpretation of Tomlin's comments on last week's show was correct. But while that technicality may be true, the NFL is not going to care if this was a Steelers bye week, like it or not.
Right, and that's one of the things that I said we needed to watch when we got into Monday here and trying to parse what what Mike Tomlin had to say the other day. Sounds to me they had the bonus day and they're just choosing to use the bonus day instead of wallowing in it or what in other words, it's still a bye week.
Sorry, you're not being able to flip the system here and catch the NFL and somehow finagle a bye week out of this.
Right.
Another bye week, I should say. So that's just the reality of it. It sucks. It does. But what can you do?
And wrap it up real quick. I mean, what else do you expect Juju to have to say? No, I'm not looking forward to it. No, the grass probably ain't good. You can tell. He knows. He reads what's out. I'm sure he's talked to other people out there as well. And he's on social media. He knows that these players saying, you leave Pittsburgh, it's just not the same. But even so, there becomes, like I said, there's a line between financial, where the financials say you got to go regardless,
right?
Kind of deal. So we'll see. The biggest thing once again, it's and I ended the article. Let me pull that back up here real quick to make sure I get how I wrote this correctly here, and I don't think it's going to surprise a lot of people here overall. The final statement that I have in here is, once again, Smith-Schuster's market value isn't the biggest issue when it comes to him staying in Pittsburgh past the 2020 season. I think you'd agree with that, right? The issue also obviously isn't that he doesn't want to stay or that the team won't want him back. The issue is the 2020 salary cap situation the Steelers potentially face.
Right. Had COVID not been a thing and this whole cap situation didn't happen the way it did and it was going up on a normal curve, Juju's coming back in all likelihood, correct?
I think it's a lot better. It's a lot more plausible, Once again, you get into the whole the Steelers historically in top market value for wide receivers, albeit that $16-17 million per season would not be top of the position market value, right? So at least you wouldn't be in that realm. But it would be quite a thing if they did, it would go against a lot of things they've done in the past by signing a player to a very lucrative deal such as that near market value, and especially a wide receiver in between the season ending and the franchise tag deadline. So let's just leave it at that.
But 2020 is a year of exceptions, as we have found out. In 2021 probably will be the same. Dave, I had an article, I filmed from this morning on Eric Ebron and his blocking. Wanted to kind of take a step back with the bye week and check out Ebron as a blocker. And I think it really just goes back to the stuff I said before the season started after they signed him, that he's not an effective blocker, but if you're smart with him, in terms of using leverage and angles and schematically, just being really thoughtful with kind of how you're using him to not put him in any overly stressful situations, he can be competent enough. And I have some examples of that in the article on SteelersDepot.com. And so you guys can check that out and just kind of show that where he wins and where he hasn't. And the few times they put him in positions where he's not going to be a Heath Miller and cannot base block Bradley Chubb or combo block and work to the second level, those are situations where he'll fail. But if you can down block him instead or run away from him or not have him on the field entirely in some running situations, then you're kind of really minimizing his weaknesses.
Where are you at right now with Eric Ebron 3 games into the season?
Just on the overall signing?
Overall.
It's been, the first 2 weeks were obviously quiet. Last week was a whole lot better, so that kind of maybe soothed any initial concerns and worries about him fitting in the offense and kind of earning his keep. It's really as expected, though. Making an impact in the red zone. The blocking's not been great, but he's showing some effort, and you can use him, smartly in terms of the angles, like I just mentioned. So it's been as expected, I guess, is how I would frame it.
Look, hopefully you didn't expect the block. Nobody expected the blocking to be Heath Miller like, So I think everything's status quo on him. Kind of maybe what we thought. You would like to see maybe another catch or two, along the way here. I'm not shocked overall though with the numbers that he has to date. In fact, I kind of warn people that don't be too bullish on total receptions for him. If he averages 3 a game, I think that's fantastic. By the time he gets there, will he hit 48 catches for the season, Alex?
not looking like it. It feels like there'll be more games like week 1 and 2 than you're going to have a week 3. He's probably going to come around that 35-40 range when the season ends is kind of my guess right now.
That's where I kind of thought envision him as well, too. Will Eric Ebron, from what you've seen so far, do enough to warrant being, it's ways off, but we got a lot to talk. I mean, we have little to talk about, so we're creating it. Has he done enough to warrant keeping in 2021 at his price tag?
I mean, it's just so much more complicated given the whole cap situation, and there are going to be some tough cuts. You just can't keep everybody right now and be cap compliant. You literally cannot do that. So
his that would match Juju's cap number right there, right?
Would it?
Pretty damn close, right?
Oh, yeah, with the 6.4 you're talking about?
Yeah, I mean, you want to start talking about ways to carve out ways to keep Juju, right?
That's a good point. Yeah, Ebron better tell Juju that the rest of the world is great and Detroit is great this time of year, and go somewhere else, Juju, so I can keep my job.
$6 million he's scheduled to earn. That's how much you would save with Eric Ebron's spot next year. I'm not saying. I'm just saying. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, to answer your question, I'm going to hedge my answer and just say I don't know. I think it could go either way. Right now, we're 3 games in. I mean, it's not been bad, but it could go either way.
People expect us to kind of speculate about this stuff. They love it when we get it wrong. They don't care if I get it right. But
right.
I will say no.
What do you think?
I will say no. He has not done enough to warrant keeping around past 2020 as we sit here right now.
What about Vance?
No, he's gone. I love the look right now too. I mean, he looks every bit of a Steelers tight end right now. You know, just not enough there. Now, if he wants to hang around and take the minimum, I'm all for it.
Right, but don't see that as a likely scenario.
I wouldn't rule it out. I mean, if the guy wants to play one more year and stick around, and because I mean, what's his what's the market value going to be for Vance McDonald outside of Pittsburgh anyway?
Yeah. Low for sure.
So maybe that's a possibility. But I mean, look, he's probably as good as gone, barring some sort of salary cap, boom, boom or something.
Right.
But Eric Ebron, it becomes a real question, I think, unless McDonald wants to take a huge cut in pay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but the one clip I showed on Ebron was him down blocking J.J. Watt on the front side of a power run. And so, I mean, it wasn't pretty, but it got the job done enough. And so, again, if you're smart about him, because he's not a small guy. Like, there's a lot of tight ends, these H-back types, the Harrison Bryant types are like 6'2", 230, 31-inch arms. I mean, Ebron came out of North Carolina at 6'4", 250, 33-inch arms. Like, he's built to block. He's just not super physical and certainly not a good blocker, but he can use his size and length and some strength to just get in the way enough when you're smart with how you want to block him. And so he can be effective in that regard, and he has been so far.
Right, and we talked about that. There's certain things that you just don't want to ask him to do.
Mm-hmm. Right, and base blocking, Bradley Chubb is a great example of that you pointed out, and I included in the article. So check that out on SteelersDepot.com. Anything else Steelers related you wanted to touch on, Dave, before we kind of do a quick trip around the NFL and the AFC North?
Did we hit on the whole Wisniewski thing on Friday?
I believe we did, yeah, with him kind of getting screwed potentially with the bye week.
Right, not that is a huge deal because there's probably a good chance that he wasn't going to be ready this week anyway there. I think in more positive news, Deontay Johnson did work on, I think that was Thursday that we talked about, so looking good for him to be able to play against the Eagles for sure, and we'll just see what happens with Derek Watt and Marcus Allen. I saw Marcus Allen post on Instagram getting some kind of treatment on that foot, but you would think it's going to be maybe a couple of weeks for him with that plantar fasciitis. Of course, Mike Tomlin will address the media on Tuesday at his normal time, and we'll see. I think overall this team should be fairly healthy and rested going into this game, though.
Yeah, I think so as well. All right, Dave, let's look around the AFC North. It was a good week to be a team other than the Steelers and play in the North with Baltimore beating Washington, Cleveland, as we mentioned, winning that shootout victory over Dallas, and the Bengals beating Jacksonville for Joe Burrow's first career win.
Yeah, Where do you want to start on that? I mean, Cleveland's offense looks okay. I mean, I think Stefanski's doing a good job with the personnel and all with that. I like the trick play early there. I'm glad they got that on tape, though. It's going to be interesting. I think the biggest thing to come out maybe of that Cleveland game is Nick Chubb and the knee injury there. They play the Steelers in, 2 more weeks, right?
Yeah, I mean, as I said before the year, I said to win the AFC North, you better stop the run. And Cleveland is running the ball better than any team right now, even without Nick Chubb. And I think the report was the Browns are cautiously optimistic. I don't know exactly what that means, but hopefully he avoided a season-ending type injury. But still, they got Kareem Hunt, Ernest Jackson rushed for nearly 100 yards. Wyatt Teller on the offensive line is doing a great job pulling and getting out front. Again, I will repeat what I said before. I know it's a passing league, but to win the North, you better stop the run.
Right. And they are able to run the ball, and they're getting good blocking, I think, on the edge out of some of those guys as well. Their defense, though, is the thing that's their Achilles heel, at this point. So as far as the Ravens go, Lamar Jackson bounced back like we thought, most probably thought he would. And once again, if they're able to run the football and take the football away, they're going to be in fine shape here. And then the Bengals. I mean, I think Joe Burrow is at least showing that he belongs. And it's not too soon. Other than the offensive line not playing great for him. I don't think did he get sacked in that game yesterday? I don't think he did. I think they did a better job maybe of telling him to get that football out of his hands.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm with you 100%.
So all of them won. The Steelers didn't gain any ground there, but an interesting scenario already in Week 5 is you have the Ravens and the Bengals playing each other, and Cleveland plays. Who does Cleveland play?
That's a good question.
I just wrote that up the other day.
The Colts.
Okay, there you go. And the Colts are playing some pretty decent football right now. So that should set up an interesting scenario there. And obviously the Steelers will host the Eagles. And Mike Tomlin and the Steelers have done good off of a bye. In fact, they are trying to have now a 4-game winning streak under Tomlin coming off of their bye weeks. And curiously enough, the last time they had a Week 4 bye was in 2012, and who did they play in Week 5? The Philadelphia Eagles. So and they won that game there. Now the Steelers against the Eagles, not good in the Super Bowl era on the road. In fact, I don't think the Steelers have a win against the Eagles in the Super Bowl era on the road. They have fared a lot better, though, at home, obviously, against the Eagles there. And that's where they will play them. And once again, the Eagles are a pretty beat-up team entering this game against the Steelers.
Yeah, although we'll see if they get healthier. I don't know exactly what some of their statuses are, how close some of those guys like Deshaun Jackson, the whole receiver core is. So that line's still going to be in a tough spot, but we'll see if they get any healthier for Week 5. And yeah, just overall the AFC North, you can just tell, I mean, it's going to be incredibly competitive. Even the Bengals, I mean, Steelers are going to be favorites in both of those games they play Cincinnati, but the Bengals are not going to be the easy pushovers they kind of have been the last couple of years.
All right, we talked about what do you foresee happening? Boy, the Patriots, not a great week to lose Cam Newton, right? Monday night game against the Chiefs here. I mean, I'm guessing you're expecting the Chiefs to really take it to them tonight.
Yeah, I was really looking forward to Cam Newton versus Mahomes. Obviously, still seeing how Belichick schemes up defensively versus Mahomes is going to be a great chess match. So that's going to be a lot of fun to watch. And yeah, just the Monday Night Football doubleheader. I wonder if this will push the league to doing some more doubleheaders on Monday night. They do it to start the year. I don't know. It feels like a good draw, a good lane for the NFL to carve out.
Yeah, but the network who has ESPN probably say, "Oh no, not unless we have both the games." So
that's true.
I would think the whole. Look, we're not going to bid on this deal unless there's got to be some stipulation in there to protect the networks and their investment into this, I would think.
Unless, as you said, ESPN just does both games, which I'm sure they would be open to.
Sure. But then you get into the whole short week thing and all, and how far are we away from 2 Thursday night games then? And look, I would be more apt to. I would feel better about them doing away with a Thursday night game if they want to add a Monday night game.
Well, no, I agree. I mean, I just see NFL a chance to make money, be more visible. They don't really care about player safety and concerns about all the other things.
The NFL Players Association sure likes to talk a damn good game going into these things, but when they get there, they leave so much on the table. They say one of these years. When it comes to the negotiations, and it's probably not going to happen because of just the iron lock. These players need the money, and a lot of them just don't save their money and can't get a consensus going here. But the whole player safety with they ought to demand not playing on Thursday night. Okay, they ought to demand that there not be artificial turf in these stadiums. We saw how it worked out with the whole. They'll have to end up giving things back like preseason games, but most of them will probably say, well, heck, the veterans will probably say we don't play in half of them anyway. Mm-hmm. But and obviously we're years away from heck. I might be dead by the time next negotiations going on here. But they ought at some point they got to make a firmer stand, or else it's just lip service. They got to hold the NFL's hands to the fire when it comes to some of these these safety things. Short weeks is one of them, especially Thursday night games. And you're not going to move it to Saturday and compete with college football. Are you going to move it to Friday night maybe? Or are you going to get a situation? I think the best case scenario, maybe as you started this topic here, maybe having 2 Monday night games spread out enough where one network gets to cover both of them. But even so, how far are you going to push back the late game where you're going to have people hating going into work on Tuesday morning because they stayed up till 1:30 Eastern time watching the late Monday night game. Anyway, right. That's just all fill time talk right there is what that is, folks.
Well, I'm with you. Well, that's very good vamping, very good podcasting. I'm with you. I think the NFL unions is very weak. I think they, as you said, they talk a big game. They really come through, and I don't think they're very effective for fighting for their players.
Right.
My opinion.
I mean, they constantly leave stuff on the table, and really they didn't do overall very well, I don't think, coming out of the negotiations this year, and the owners know that.
Mm-hmm. There's no pushback. I mean, they just agreed to a deal immediately, which I guess is good to avoid the lockout. But I mean, they just folded pretty quickly and agreed to the new CBA.
They really did. You go back to several years ago, Ramon Foster trying to tell these guys, save your money, and now JC. I don't think JC did them any good either this time. So unless they get, and even Eric Fisher, I think, talked a big game, right?
They all did.
They all do, and if push comes to shove, they never get enough. Will they ever get enough? Probably not. It's going to have to take a season getting canceled, I think, before the players get the upper hand in any of this.
Or a strike of some sort. So that in 82, 87, I mean, I don't know. That seems to be the most effective approach. Anyway, all right, Dave, before we get to some reader emails, unless there's anything else you want to talk about from the NFL or the Steelers, we can talk about our friends over at MyBookie. And you kicked my butt this past week, Dave. I think you're now leading the season prediction record.
Well, I was going into the week, right?
Yeah, going into the week. I don't know where we're at coming out of week 4, but I know heading into week 4, you were, I think, a game up on me.
Yeah, I haven't looked to see. I briefly looked. I was doing okay according to our picks there, and of course, we picked the Steelers and Titans game, we didn't pick that one, right?
No, right, because it was canceled by.
Right. Okay. We'll have to see how that shakes out, but I was able to overtake you in week 3 there. We'll find out if I held my lead there. Winning season returns at MyBookie. We got 2 games tonight, Alex. Winning season means doubling your first deposit. Winning season means insane props, epic bonuses, and the craziest cross-sport wagers. At MyBookie, winning season means watching live sports and betting live sports all season long. Rejoice, the NFL has returned. That means action-packed Sundays and huge cash prizes. Get in on the action. Use promo code TERRIBLE. That's promo code TERRIBLE and double your first deposit. New players get up to $1,000 in free play designed to add more excitement to the sports you love and the games you bet. Bet with the best this NFL season for your chance to win big. Use promo code TERRIBLE and double your first deposit today. Your winning season begins today only at mybookie.ag.
All right, Dave, let's get to some reader emails and begin wrapping up today's show.
And also we already got somebody I think scheduled an Eagles beat writer for Wednesday. Got to get back with him on Tuesday just to firm things up there. But that should be that week as we're moving on to the Eagles week here. And with that, we'll get to the email machine. I've got a lot of nasty emails at me lately here.
Yeah, that's really disappointing. I don't know why people are doing that.
I got about 3 more nasty emails this morning here. Let's see. Brett Nile writes in, "Hey, Dave and Alex, I had a quick question about the kicking game. Obviously, it has been significantly better this year. My question is why? Specifically, how much of it is better blocking, different scheme, Ray being special, catch the ball, run fast?"
Yeah, I know I mentioned it, I think sometime on last week's show, Wednesday or Friday. I need to really take a deeper dive into it. I feel like they're doing a better job with some angles, and they're changing the blocking scheme a bit to create a better wall. And so it's not – because if you try to block these things straight up where you're just running straight ahead and the other guy's running at you and he's got a two-way go, he can win left or right, it's really hard to win that block consistently, especially when it's like Jalen Samuels or a linebacker trying to make that block. It's not like it's an offensive lineman, someone that really knows how to block and be effective at that. So I think schematically they're doing a better job working angles. I don't know for sure, but that's been my initial impression. And then, of course, McLeod's just done a nice job as a returner, getting upfield, being explosive, breaking some tackles, and just getting vertical, and just has a good timing overall with the blocking. So it's a unit-wide thing for sure, but I do think there have been maybe some long overdue, unfortunately, maybe some schematic tweaks that are seeing some positive results.
All right, they're averaging 9 through 3 games, 9 yards per punt return. It has them right slap dab in the middle at 14, ranked 14 overall in the league. They are averaging 28 yards per kickoff return. That's something we're not used to seeing. That has them tied for second in the NFL through 3 games there. As far as punt, the other side of the football goes, they are allowing 8.9 yards per average punt return. That's 19th in the league. And kickoff return 18.8, which is 11th in the league.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah, some of the net punting is still got to be a lot better. I don't know exactly what their net punting average is right now. I think it was 35 yards heading into the Texans game. I think it improved slightly coming out of the Houston game, but that is one stat I want to see net punting improve.
Brett now goes on to write about another one about cap difficulties and the veteran salary benefit and all, and how that might play into what the Steelers do next year. I just had something up on that. I was trying to get back down into the specifics related to that, and because I have not spent a lot of time studying that end of it there. The 4-year qualifying contract that he's talking about, it's called another type of veteran salary benefit. It can be offered to a player with at least, now this is, pay attention to this because I'm not even sure I knew the specifics. I might have read it and not committed it to memory yet. I have now, about this new year, this new kind of, now they obviously still have the old minimum salary benefit, which I think now is called veteran salary benefit there. But they also have a 4-year qualifying contract veteran salary benefit. Okay, a player. Now this is interesting here. To a player with at least 4 credited seasons, whose contract with the team has expired after being on said team for 4 or more consecutive uninterrupted league years prior to his contract expiring. Okay? Such a player must have been on the team's 90-man inactive list for said seasons and every regular season and postseason game. Teams can sign a maximum of 2 eligible players to this type of salary benefit. A qualifying contract under this benefit is a 1-year deal with a base salary of up to $1.25 million more than the minimum base salary for said player. However, if a team does sign 2 players to a qualifying contract, it can only give a combined $1.25 million in additional base salary between the 2 deals. Under such agreements, only applicable minimum base salary, not the $1.25 million benefit, is charged against the salary cap there. So that changes things a little bit there. You need, for players to even qualify for that, they have had to have been with you for the previous 4 seasons. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And he goes on to write here, I think he had suggested this for guys like Finney, but didn't ultimately use it. Had Finney been with the team for 4 years, Alex? I guess he did, but not all on the 53-man roster there. And he goes, obviously they are not using this on Bud or Juju, but guys like Wormley. Well, we already ruled out Wormley, right? Can't use it on Wormley. Alulu, how many seasons has Alulu been with the team? Sean Davis, maybe even Sutton. I think Sutton would be the only guy. Brett, I guess in long story short, all your suggestions here get washed out if I'm reading this rule correctly.
Yeah, I mean, some of that stuff gets over my head, to be honest with you. But
don't step into minutia.
I was going to say Byzantine, but I like minutia too. Yeah, so we'll see.
I know you don't like talking about that stuff as much.
No,
I
know
do.
I like it. It's 11:30 and I'm sleepy, and I don't know.
You're sleepy. Where are you going to go back to bed after this?
If you'll let me.
No, can't do it. All right, let's see if we can find out. Get a few more emails in here since the other day. I think we're running low on some of these here. Let's see if I can find one more. Maybe not. I guess people took the buy off here. Oh, what'd you think about the season ticket holder update that got sent out? Not surprising, right? We got that from David O.
Right. What was the update? Just saying that they're still hopeful, but there's really nothing concrete.
It's not looking good, obviously, with the governor and all the rulings, that we've had or did not have had come out of that. It doesn't look good for the 2 games in October. So theoretically, I guess we could be looking at. I guess it would be, when would the Steelers' next home game be after that?
The Titans game in weeks? Or no, they're on the road for that one. That's a good question.
The Ravens game, right? No, it wouldn't be that one either, because that one's on the road against the Ravens.
Yeah, you got the 11th versus Philadelphia. You got the 18th against Cleveland, but those are out. So the next one after that would be, November 15th versus Cincinnati?
Wow, yeah. Yeah, that week 10, right?
Yeah, week 10.
So the Steelers might not have fans in the stands at Heinz Field until week 10. Wow.
Yeah, and I know Art Rooney said that would certainly help salary cap financially to have fans. I think it's possible to have fans, socially distanced, limited capacity. I think that's certainly something that can be done, and hopefully it happens sooner than later.
We'll see. And other than that, I can't find any more questions. So that'll be a good place for us, I think, to stop there. So in the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. You can follow Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and you want to donate to the cause, go to SteelersDepot.com, hit the donate button up right navigational bar. Also, if you want an ad-free version of SteelersDepot.com, you can get one of those by going to SteelersDepot.com, hitting the ad-free button up right navigational bar. For $25 for 1 calendar year, you can have access to an ad-free version of the site that's been very, very popular with our readers there. Alex and I will be back on Wednesday, hopefully with an Eagles beat writer starting to talk more and more about the Week 5 game at Heinz Field against the Philadelphia Eagles. Alex, good job today. We'll be back at it. Also, tell people what we do on Monday night.
Yeah, we'll have our Monday YouTube live stream. So Monday, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, runs for an hour. Dave and I get on my YouTube channel and do a Steelers question and answer, answering any and all of your Steelers questions. That gets posted on Steelers Depot, and I think we listen to the podcast now. So come hang out with us at 7 p.m. tonight, right before, the first Monday night game.
Yep. And with that, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.